Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's Wimbledon quarterfinals catch-up, sponsored by DownloadTennis.com.
Sensational Svitolina shocks Swiatek.
Sinner makes his first slam semi.
And Ons Jabeur gets revenge on Elena Rybakina.
Kim, today is the 12th of July and we are here to catch up on the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. Our semi-finalists in the men and ladies competitions are set. Iga Swiatek will not be there. Novak Djokovic will be there. And sadly, Jessie Pegula and Andrei Rublev, they have still not broken their Grand Slam quarterfinals hoodoo.
They have not. They remain the bridesmaids. A lot of similarities between both of them players. And a bit of a shame they haven't been able to get across that final line into the semi-finals.
Is Rublev ATP Pegula or is Pegula WTA Rublev?
Oh, I don't know, but I kind of wish they could go to some kind of quarterfinal dance for people like knocked out the quarterfinals, a bit like the Champions Ball, yes, but for quarterfinalists, because I think they'd make a nice pairing. But
it's nothing to be sniffed at. I mean, in terms of how many quarterfinals they've got, and we will come on and talk about that. We're going to be wrapping up all the women quarterfinals in the first half, and then we're going to be talking about all the men's quarterfinals in the second half, and we're going to give our semi-final predictions as well. I'm a bit nervous, I'm not going to lie about that, but I'm certainly going to be listening out for your predictions, because you seem to be doing the best of us over this last fortnight.
Well, yeah, I know you mentioned in the pod previously, I think I've got I had half of the quarterfinal lineup correct.
You think
on the women's side, and I've got 3 right. I think in collector set, which I think is the best I've ever done. Joint
unheard
best.
of.
I know, and I'm still on for 2 Wimbledon champions in my predictions as well. Sabalenka and Djokovic are still fighting their way through, so we shall see. But yeah, let's talk about the quarterfinals. Let's start with the women, because today we had Rybakina against Jabeur and Sabalenka against Keys. I think the match of the day out of those two was definitely Elena Rybakina, the defending champion, against Ons Jabeur, last year's finalist. So we had a repeat of the final last year, and it was all about, could Ons Jabeur avenge her defeat in that final last year? And she did. 3 sets it took her. She came from a set down, but she dominated that final set and really raced away with it at the end, clinching that last set 6-1. So she is through into her 3rd Grand Slam semi-final, and the defending champion is out. Joel, what did you make of this match today?
I mean, what is it with Ons Jabeur and Wimbledon? Because it just seems to elevate and raise her game. And I was very impressed with how she responded in this match against Rybakina, particularly after that first set in the tiebreak, which was so close. To come back and sort of not get, I think, too downhearted and too disappointed about that, I think was very impressive. I think I was particularly kind of fascinated by, the comments coming in from Jabeur was all about kind of the revenge and, the fact that they played last year. And I think the match this time around was completely different outlook and mindset. I feel like last year Jabeur let the occasion and the moment get to her. Wimbledon final against someone like a Rybakina, of course, it's going to be really hard to not let that faze you and intimidate you. And I think when she walked onto the court in this time around, I think she just had such a much more positive outlook. Yes, maybe she was helped by Rybakina's serving at times, but you could see the variety that she played with. I think it moved Rybakina all around the court, and I think that's one of her biggest weaknesses is her movements, and Jabeur was able to exploit that, and the result was a completely different outcome to last time.
Absolutely. And I think, in a quarterfinal, there is going to be less pressure on you, especially as, you'd lost to this player 12 months previously. Maybe obviously Rybakina probably was the favourite going into the match. I think that helps Jabeur. And, she had that set point in the opening set and lost it. So like you said, she did so well to kind of regroup, take the second set, and then walk away with it in the third. And I think Rybakina, like you said, she doesn't move quite as well. Jabeur played to that, and also Rybakina, her serve really dropped in that final set. So I think for Rybakina, considering coming into this tournament, we hadn't seen an awful lot of her on the court. She'd had that illness, which took her out of the French Open. So I think getting to the quarterfinals is a decent enough performance. Obviously, it's not a title defence, which she would have been hoping for, but I think she's had overall a very good tournament with some impressive wins. And maybe the fact that she didn't have much of a match previously against Haddad Maid maybe didn't help going into this one. But Jabeur, what a great mentality out there today, and definitely a fan favourite. I'm sure the crowd are really going to be cheering her all the way through the rest of the tournament.
I did enjoy her saying, although she won the match, she was a bit like, I kind of wished it was the other way round, and she would have got a Grand Slam title if this happened the first time around. But I do think it shows, in terms of progression and experiences, sometimes you need those losses to kind of understand, next time I have this challenge, how do I get the victory? And I think this is testament to that. And another thing I've also been kind of really pleased with in terms of Jabeur is the fact that when it does come to Grand Slams, she can just turn it on. I think that shows the character that she has, the belief that she has. And even though I don't think she had the greatest kind of run up to Wimbledon, she can kind of get herself in a mindset that gives her that kind of confidence. Right, I'm here, I'm a contender, and I'm going to prove it. And this was the biggest test I think so far she faced. I thought Petra Kvitova maybe was going to give her a run for her money, but I think that the way she has grown into the tournament, the belief that she's had, pulling on last year's run as well, has served her really, really well. And who knows, maybe she'll get to another Wimbledon final.
Maybe it'll be third time lucky for her, should she get there, given that she lost 2 of those Grand Slam finals last year. Perhaps she's playing just with a bit more of a relaxed mentality. Last year, she was visualising winning so much. She had a photo of the trophy on her phone.
She seemed to talk about it so much in her press conferences, didn't she? Like, as you said, there was almost this borderline like obsession about, being really blasé and open about it. And you sort of thought, hang on, is that the right identity? I feel like to give off in a press conference, and maybe it's a little bit. I still think she's very extroverted, and you can see that on the court. But maybe again, it's been a little bit more tempered this time round, and as you said, that has enabled her to be a little bit freer, a little bit more relaxed, and I think that's arguably when she plays her best tennis.
Well, she's going to need to play her best tennis for the semi-final, because she will be playing Aryna Sabalenka, who came through today against Madison Keys 6-2, 6-4. So quite a straightforward scoreline against Madison Keys today. Sabalenka, doing her what she does best, basically just going after everything, and
Madison Keys doing what she does best as well. Lots of unforced errors, as well as lots of winners.
Yeah, I think the ratio was not so good for Keys, and I think that was really the story of the match. But yeah, a bit of a slugfest between the two of them, but Sabalenka coming out on top. And if she does make the final, Sabalenka, she will become the new world number 1. So she will knock Swiatek off the top of the rankings. So there's extra motivation for Sabalenka. Obviously, she wants to win Wimbledon. She wants to get into another Grand Slam final, but she also, wants that number 1 ranking. It's been over a year since anyone else has had it, bar Swiatek. So do you think, based on what you saw from her today, Joel, that she has got the game and the form to get into the final and to get that number 1 ranking right now?
Absolutely. I think she's got a big few days coming up with so much on the line. By the end of this week, she could be the world number 1 and with another Grand Slam title in her locker. And if you look at how she responded, I think, to Madison Keys, particularly in that second set, she was 4-2, 40 love down to Keys, and then she just went into full on beast mode. It was incredible. She was hitting so many winners, and she didn't let the situation get on top of her. I think we have always spoken about in the past with Sabalenka that her temperament, it can go haywire, and when it does go haywire, the matches can get away from her so quickly. So to see her in a really tough spot in that second set, to come out the way she did, and play the way she did without hitting any unforced errors was mightily impressive. And Madison Keys, as big a hitter as she is, she was just left powerless.
Yeah, and Keys, she'd won Eastbourne coming into this. She, hadn't lost a match on grass for quite a while. So obviously in good form, but just not at the same kind of level of, I think, ferocity and as Sabalenka, who just out hit her really at the end of the day. And Sabalenka, she is now the first player since Serena Williams to have made 4 consecutive semi-finals at a Grand Slam, which I think is pretty impressive. And other than Serena, Joel, do you know who the last player was to have reached 3 Grand Slam semis in a row in the same year?
Azarenka? Kvitova?
No, it's actually, and I would never have guessed this in a million years if I hadn't seen this stat online, Eugenie Bouchard back in 2014, I think. So, how she's fallen down since then.
It just shows, I think, in terms of Sabalenka, the consistency that she's added to her game. I think that is testament to what the effort she's put in, particularly with her shots. We know about her struggles, for example, on serve in the past, serving countless double faults and losing matches, and to see her kind of go back to the drawing board in terms of biomechanics, working on those shots, I think it's really paying dividends now in terms of you're just not seeing those shots break down, I feel, like we used to. And it's, I think, gives her that confidence that even when she might be down in a set or a breakdown, that she can have that belief in her shots that actually, don't worry, I can rely on that to get me out of trouble as opposed to get me into trouble. So I think that's worked really, really well for her. And the fact that she can have another Grand Slam in her trophy cabinet and have the number 1 ranking, I think, is a testament to the fact that, yes, she's a big game player in these tournaments, and she is ready to go, and she brings that intensity and aggressiveness to the tennis court, but it also shows the consistency that she's bringing. I think that's something that you would say in her career up to maybe last season has certainly been lacking.
Yeah, she definitely is hard to match for intensity, is Sabalenka. I mean, we'll make some predictions later on, but just bear in mind, Sabalenka does lead the head-to-head with Ons Jabeur 3-1, and they did actually play in the quarterfinals here 2 years ago, which was straight sets for Sabalenka.
I think it was quite a straightforward straight sets win for Sabalenka, and I think it's going to be fascinating in terms of Jabeur and the level of power and the power players that she has faced. She had Kvitova, she had Rybakina, and now she's got Sabalenka. And I think it's probably got harder each time. The player maybe has got less erratic, and it feels like Sabalenka is going to be the ultimate test there, because she's added more margin to her game. And that's why, again, I think she's become such a competitor. She's got into a position where she could be world number 1, and Jabeur is going to have to pull every trick in the book, I think, to nullify that threat.
Yeah, and given what we've seen of Jabeur in the last 2 rounds, I just think it makes Bianca Andreescu, like, her performance against Jabeur look really impressive. Apart from the end of the match, I thought she did really, really well, given that we've seen Jabeur kind of get better and better since then. So I think she'll be quite pleased in hindsight. Let's look at the other side of the women's draw, because shock of the day yesterday was Elina Svitolina knocking out Iga Swiatek in 3 sets. So the world number 1 has gone. Swiatek's quest for a Wimbledon title will have to wait another year. It was 7-5, 6-7, 6-2 to Svitolina. Swiatek served for that first set, and I thought it was all going to be kind of straightforward, but it was not to be. Even when I went to a third set, I thought, Swiatek's gonna do this one now and just kind of run away with it. But it went the other way, and Svitolina pretty comfortable in the end in that final set. What is going on with Svitolina and her return to not just the tour but Wimbledon? This is her 4th win over a Grand Slam champion at Wimbledon alone, which is just incredible. What a run of form! And did you see this result coming, Joel?
No. I think maybe there were warning signs in the last match with Swiatek, and coming through those match points against Bencic. I think in this match, her forehand was very inconsistent at times, but I was very impressed at the same time with how Svitolina dealt with the difficult moments, particularly that second set tiebreak where, you know, you could see she was very close to pulling out a straight sets victory against Swiatek. She was up in the tiebreak. You thought, oh, this is only a matter of time now. And then we saw that mental resilience I think Iga Swiatek showed against Belinda Bencic, came out, played some very, very good tennis to almost kind of steal that tiebreaker, I think, from the clutches of Svitolina. So I was fascinated with how Svitolina was going to respond in that third set, and to think she brought that level of tennis in that third set and it just sort of went away from Swiatek so easily. I don't think anyone was prepared for that.
No, and I mean, quoting the stats again, and rather unsurprisingly, Serena Williams features in a lot of stats. Svitolina is only the third player in the Open era to actually beat four former Grand Slam champions in one Grand Slam tournament. So Serena Williams did that in the US Open in 99 and Justine Henin at Roland Garros in 2005. They both went on to win the title. So that bodes well for Svitolina. And I guess for me, it's sort of a bit of a classic tale in the sense that she's come back from having a child. You know, she's now a mother, and I think that just gives so much more perspective and makes her more relaxed on the court because she's got that kind of that she looks at things differently. That's what she was saying, and obviously the war going on in her home country, it just means that on the court she's not feeling the pressure in terms of her tennis, and I think that just allows her to play her true natural game and just kind of be more free, and we're seeing that pay dividends on the court.
I tell you what, Caroline Wozniacki has a lot to live up to, I think, with her with her scheduled comeback. But it's been an incredible ride, for Svitolina, and I think we've got to remember that taking a break from tennis, she was a very, very good competitor. It's not like, I think I'm surprised anyway that she has got back to this level. But to me, what's been, has taken me by surprise is how quickly I think she's got back to this level. Quarterfinal at French Open, now a semi-final at Wimbledon. The players that she's beating, she was match tough coming into this semi-final with Iga Swiatek. Yes, Iga Swiatek, she may have been scared into playing the tennis that she needed to at this time, given those match points against Belinda Bencic. But the route that Svitolina has had, you'd say that there's been no gimme matches there. And again, I think it just shows that she has had to be on it from day one. And although I think the Ukraine situation, maybe that could be a pressure, I think she's channeling it in the right way, and actually it's making her more resilient and more stronger when it comes to these matches where she's playing players who, in the rankings, yes, lots, much higher above me, but actually she's just taking that out of the equation and being like, I'm here to play tennis. I'm doing it for my country. This is what I can do.
Yeah, and we see with Swiatek, just talking about the kind of the war, Swiatek always wears that Ukrainian flag on her hat, and she actually put on a charity match for Ukraine, which Svitolina was umpiring, I think, last year when she was on her maternity leave. So the irony now that she's come back and beaten Swiatek, on centre court at Wimbledon. But it is just amazing, and I think
has it surprised you?
I think. Not in terms of the form, because she's been to Grand Slam semi-finals before, she's been world number 4, but I think, the speed, coming back, having that time off the tour, how quickly she's got the results. I mean, she's going to be back up to at least 27th in the rankings. Yeah. Coming in, when she started playing again in April, she was about 1,400. So what a rise up so quickly. But it reminds me, I guess we've seen it perhaps more recently, Pironkova at the US Open a couple of years ago. I think it might have been one of her first events. She got to the quarters, but I think this is even more remarkable, I
mean, I love how relaxed she is, because on the court afterwards she said, I think she was asked, what are you going to do after the match? She was like, I'm going to go have a beer. And I think everyone, everyone can relate to that. It's a very feel good story. And I guess, Kim, the question on everyone's lips is Harry Styles ever going to be in attendance at these matches? Because they've got this sort of she's going to have to put off her Harry Styles tickets a bit longer. Who knows? Do you think is Harry Styles ever going to go watch one of her matches now?
I was wondering if he could make it to like the final if she gets there, but he might be away on tour.
I've not checked. I hold my hand up. I've not checked Harry Styles' tour schedule, but I did notice that I think he did comment on one of her posts on social media. So there is definitely some sort of like interaction kind of going on there. But it's incredible to think what Svitolina has done. And although I think with comebacks, there's a lot of trepidation there, and I almost think like you feel you know how hard it is when you see, I think, players like Andy Murray, Dominic Thiem, but you've got to remember at the other end of the spectrum it could be something like Elina Svitolina, and that's what makes it. I think for me that's what makes it that much more like wow, is because we know how hard it is to come back from these moments, that slog up the rankings. In fact, she's got a wild card and there's offered little protection there. As you said, the 4 major champions she's had to defeat so far, mightily impressive.
Absolutely. I think just going back to the sort of point of Murray and Thiem, they had injury problems, so I guess more difficult in the sense that, as far as we're aware, Svitolina didn't have a sort of long-term injury, but still having a child is no mean feat and will give a lot of physical changes to your body and mental changes as well. Like you're a different person in many different ways, so it's a different sort of thing to deal with, but still very difficult regardless.
And just on Iga Swiatek, she could by the end of this week not be world number 1, and she would have been going in with high hopes here, given she won the French Open. Could she win her first ever Wimbledon? What do you think's going on through her mind in terms of her season and where she's at? Because at times during that match there were some very heated moments between her and her box and her her mental her mental coach. Where do you think Swiatek goes from here? Do you think this is I don't want to say like the rails have come off, no, but do you think she'll be disappointed with how Wimbledon has gone for her?
I think she'll be disappointed, and if she's getting sort of worked up with like her psychologist, it's not really a good look, in the sense that the psychologist, I assume, is there to keep you sort of nice and calm. And so I think she'll have to sort of take some time away and regroup and focus on like the US hardcourt, where she will be defending, the US Open. So she probably needs to switch her focus to that after a bit of a rest. And, I guess her focus really now is, she's done Roland Garros several times. She's a 3-time champion there, but does she want to become like a great of the game and win all 4 slams? And she's going to have to put the work in to really transition her game more for the grass, because as we know, Wimbledon has been her least successful slam. So, but then I think, given her age, that's more of a long-term project. So she's got certainly time on her side, and I don't think she should be panicking anytime soon, because all in all perspective, she'll be, if not the world number 1, the world number 2, and a quarterfinal showing here, which is her best showing yet. So definitely still some positives. Overall.
She wasn't like downbeat, I think, in a press conference. In fact, I think she was actually pretty happy for Elina Svitolina in terms of how she did. So I'll be interested to see how she does bounce back. And I think it's like, clay, you're great, but certainly work to do on the other court surfaces.
Knowing Iga, she'll probably reopen her bakery in Canada when we resume. But let's have a look at the quarterfinal in the women's side, because we had Marketa Vondrousova versus Jessie Pegula. I don't know what to make of this one, really, because I thought, on paper, Pegula's like the favourite. She's the number 4 seed. But Vondrousova has been to a Grand Slam final. She's gone deeper at a slam. So I kind of thought it could go either way. And in the end, it was pretty evenly balanced. It was a 3-setter. Pegula was up in that last set.
4-1.
Vondrousova came back, to clinch it. So Pegula's so close to her first semi-final.
It's going to sting. I think it's going to sting because given her record in quarterfinals, that's now 7 quarterfinals all exited at this stage. And you'd think against someone like Marketa Vondrousova at Wimbledon, a surface on grass, she said, she plainly said that she's not had great performance on this surface in her career. You felt like this was an opportunity. But at the same time, I think Pegula was shown by Vondrousova in that third set what it really takes to get to a Grand Slam final, which of course, she has done. And that level of tennis that Vondrousova brought in that third set, I don't think we've seen that for a long time. I don't think we've ever seen that level that she brought, and almost kind of Pegula was powerless to stop it. But yeah, she will be, I think, very, very disappointed because I think there have been some quarterfinals where she's just plainly not got the luck of the draw, and she's just come up against an opponent who's been too good. But with Marketa Vondrousova on the other side, a very, very good player, and a player, bar injuries, surgeries, her wrist, would be a lot higher, I think, than where she is. She would, I think, be going away and think, I could have broken my duck there.
Yeah, but I think, we know as Joe Conter fans not to underestimate Vondrousova. And Vondrousova, like you said, did struggle with injuries after she reached that French Open final. So perhaps would have come into this tournament in a completely different situation had she not had some really unfortunate injuries and time away from the tour in the last few years. But what I do feel it is quite interesting. She came into this Wimbledon having only won 4 matches on grass in her career, which is ironic. She's, I think, definitely the surprise semi-finalist. I mean, if you can say, the fact that a wild card is the other semi-finalist that she's playing.
I was going to say, it's a surprise semi-final, Svitolina Vondrousova.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's great for Vondrousova. I think I've been sort of looking to see, will she go deep at Slam again? Will she kind of suddenly
did you think this moment
again?
would have come again? We had, obviously, as you said, that French Open final that she got to was as a teenager. I think she was 19. I think she's 24 now. I feel like she's in that weird phase that there are a few players in there of like a veteran on the tour but still quite young at the same time.
Yeah, she's been around for a while. Like, I don't think we were really familiar with her before she reached that French Open final, but certainly she's just sort of fallen off the radar because she's not been getting the results really too much. But I think hopefully this is the start of her getting back up the rankings, because in theory she should certainly be, a seeded player at Slams given her level. And she's got a good record against like top 5 opponents. Like she's even with 7 wins, 7 losses. So when it does come to, playing the top players, she does have some good results, of course. I guess it's just the consistency we're looking for from her.
She's a big game player. Me and Chris have seen her play for Czech Republic in the Billie Jean King Cup, and we always are like, wow, that level of tennis she's brought. Why can't we're almost like frustrated, like why can't you do that more on the tour? And I really do hope that she's seen the last of those injuries, because I'd love to see where she can truly go now after all this time in the wilderness. Where can we see her rise in terms of the rankings? Do you see her as where do you see her potentially going? Where do you see with another semi-final here following that final all those years ago, Roland Garros? Where do you see Vondrousova's kind of career going, I guess, for the rest of the season? How high up the rankings? Do you think this is a good platform she can build upon?
Certainly a good platform, and she will fortunately get ranking points from this year's Wimbledon, which will help. I think she's got the potential for top 10 if she can play like we've seen her play, like the last bit of that match against Pegula, yesterday. Pegula, like you said, you can say, oh, she choked, she was 4-1 up, but actually it was more Vondrousova just raising her level and blasting shots down, like you said. So if she can keep that sort of performances up, consistently on the tour, then why not, a top 10 player? I think going into the semi-final, I'm not really sure who to predict out of her and Svitolina. I mean, they've got quite a close head-to-head. It's 3-2 to Svitolina, but Vondrousova, I think, won the last time they played, which was at the Olympics in 2021. So it's going to be an interesting one. And both, like you said, are surprise semi-finalists. So in a way, they've both got like nothing to lose. So I hope they're just kind of going to go out there and, you know, I'm sure they will obviously give it all they've got, but I hope they kind of go out there without feeling the pressure. Yeah. So we can really see an amazing match.
I can't see them being both, given the experiences they've had in the past, I can't see them necessarily being phased, by the occasion. I think they will leave it all out there. I certainly know Elina Svitolina's going to. But yeah, it could be, I think, a very tough match. And I think for Svitolina, you maybe sense it's on Svitolina's racket a little bit more. But we always know that it's always hard to back up wins against top players. And I'd be asking, how much is left, I guess, in the Svitolina tank in terms of the fact that she's defeated 4 major champions. There's all this, I guess, expectation, on her. Even herself, she was not. She had, as I say, she had Harry Styles' book. She wasn't, in her own head, wasn't maybe even meant to get this far. So I'd be interested to see how much she's got left in the tank. But certainly she's going to be spurred on by I think, doing it for Ukraine, as it were.
Yeah, and I think she'll get the crowd support as well. Not that the crowd would have anything against Vondrousova, but they want to see the fairy tale kind of come back complete, don't they? So let's take a quick break now, but we'll be back in the second half looking back on all the men's quarterfinal action from Wimbledon. So do not go anywhere. This episode is brought to you by NordVPN.
NordVPN is a virtual private network, which means it protects your internet connection and privacy online.
VPNs create an encrypted tunnel for your data, protecting your online identity by hiding your IP address.
But what does this mean for our Tennis Weekly listeners? Well, we chose to partner with NordVPN because it will allow you to watch tennis wherever you are.
With NordVPN, you can connect to servers around the world, so when you're looking to watch live tennis and get that pesky message, this stream is not available in your market, all you have to do is open NordVPN, click on a location, and you'll be connected in seconds.
Personally, I've been using NordVPN for the last 2 years since I moved to Denmark, allowing me to still connect to my UK streaming services and watch all the tennis matches I need to in order to provide the best analysis I can every week on the podcast.
So if you're looking to watch every court at Wimbledon, but you can't in your market, or you're on your summer holiday and want to keep up on all the action from SW19, then NordVPN has you covered.
Download NordVPN today with our exclusive deal at nordvpn/tennisweekly. But make sure you use our link to secure the best deal and support the podcast. It really does help us keep doing what we love.
Plus, it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Sign up before the players are ready and take to the court. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, sponsored by downloadtennis.com. Now we're going to move on to the men's quarterfinals. Today, we saw Medvedev and Eubanks and also Alcaraz and Rune. But let's look back before at yesterday's quarterfinals. Djokovic against Rublev. So Djokovic, obviously 7-time Wimbledon champion, and hands down favourite still to win the title here for the 8th time. He came through in 4 sets against Andrei Rublev. He went a set down, but rebounded very strongly.
Were you worried at all, Kim? He dropped that first set. Were you worried?
I was panicking my socks off. No, not at all. I said...
it was like the donation. It felt like a donation. It's like, well done, you've got to the semi-finals. I will give you a set, and that's it.
Yeah, here's your token set, and now I'm going to demolish you, which he did. I think he quickly went 5-love up in the second set. So an absolute typical kind of champion GOAT response from Novak Djokovic there. He's now into his 46th major semi-final, which equals Federer's record. So he is yet again, getting all these stats and numbers and sort of overtaking and equaling. But yeah, I mean, what did you make of this match, Joel? I mean, I'm talking about Andrei Rublev. Maybe that's perhaps the more interesting conversation to have in terms of how he did, because I think what we got from Djokovic was pretty much what we expected. But what did you make of Andrei Rublev's performance?
I think we know with Andrei Rublev that he leaves it all out on the tennis court. He's got a tremendous heart. He's very humble, and people love him for it. We've seen that, I think, over the last fortnight here, particularly with that miracle shot, I feel, against Bublik, which probably won him lots and lots of new fans. But I think when it comes to the sharp ends of tournaments, he is amazingly consistent, like a Jesse Pegula, and it gets him so far, but he is still yet to make that breakthrough. And I do think that he has had very tough quarterfinal matchups where you just say the other person played the better tennis. And unfortunately, I think this is another one of those instances. But I do think he's in that tricky spot of, my tennis is consistent, I've got great heart, fans love me, it can take me to this point in Grand Slams, the quarterfinals, but is it going to take me to my first ever semi-final? At the moment, no, it's not. And I think that will be really frustrating and disappointing to him. And maybe he'll look at like kind of a Jannik Sinner, who was in a similar spot but has had a different outcome this championships and has made his first semi-final.
Yeah, because up till now they've sort of had slightly similar storyline in slams, although Sinner is still a couple of years younger than Rublev. Rublev's been in, I think, 8 quarterfinals now, but
there's
still
more baggage, I feel, with Rublev, even if he doesn't necessarily show it. And you do wonder, like, I think he's intimidating to the players and the players with the rankings below him, but more or less when he comes to players around him, that aggression, that intimidation on court, it just gets blunted. And we saw that in the Novak Djokovic match. Yes, that first set, he won, but once Djokovic raised his level, he really was able to kind of contain all of what Rublev was throwing at him.
Yeah, and I think we've made this parallel before, but he does remind me quite a bit of, like a David Ferrer, very consistent, very, dogged mentality, hardworking, but just never quite gonna get that big win. I mean, I know Ferrer got to a French Open final, but just sort of very consistent. But I'm afraid, like we said before, the bridesmaid, which I would love for Rublev to kind of change that and step it up a gear.
What do you think he needs to do to get out of this rut that he is in terms of Grand Slams and quarterfinals?
It's very tricky, and I think
Is it just the draw? Because genuinely sometimes I'm like, I see some of the tennis he plays, and I'm like, how has this guy not reached a Grand Slam semi-final? And I do just wonder if he's just got incredibly unlucky with some of the matchups he's got.
But then if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best, as they say. And I mean, I know he got to the quarters in Australia this year, also played Djokovic. So I wonder, how many times it is the fact that he's lost to the eventual champion, one of the big three. But you've got to have that kind of killer edge. And there's just something that is not quite clicking to get him to that point. And maybe it will come later in his career. And maybe, when the likes of Djokovic retire, that opening in the draw will combine with him sort of finally cracking the code.
Is that the answer? Just sort of
wait it
out. Yeah.
Gosh, he definitely won't be employing us as motivational speakers, will he? But I just think even if he'd played, as well as he did in that first set, it was always going to be a tough ask to get to say 5 sets or to beat Djokovic. He just really settled in and just went back to kind of classic Djokovic domination after that first set, which is so hard to break down. He's just so consistent. I don't see anything from anyone else in the draw that's going to suggest they can beat Djokovic.
Well,
do you care to disagree?
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because Daniil Medvedev is still in Wimbledon, and Medvedev beat Djokovic in a Grand Slam final at the US Open, and I would put him as my kind of biggest threat, I think, to Djokovic winning an 8th singles a Grand Slam title at Wimbledon. I put Medvedev above Alcaraz because he's done it before, and maybe there's that seed of doubt that would be there in Djokovic if that matchup happens. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I think if there is one player who could in a phrase I like to use, upset the Djokovic apple cart. It's Daniil Medvedev. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you think Carlos Alcaraz could maybe bring it out. I don't know. Where do you stand?
I just want to see like a gif of Djokovic holding a cart of apples or something, like selling apples, and then Medvedev coming along and pushing it over. I totally get your point. Medvedev's beaten him in a Grand Slam final. I think the caveat when Medvedev beat Djokovic was that Djokovic, I think, was going for all four in that one year.
There was a lot of pressure there.
He was very...
he cracked in that final. He was in that... I remember that. I can still remember that changeover when he had the towel over his head. It just... You don't see that often with Djokovic, but yeah, he just mentally imploded.
And we've seen more finals than we have that where Medvedev's lost to Djokovic, like in Australia, and kind of combusted and got all annoyed and upset. So that is what makes me think that might not be the best final at Wimbledon. But then we saw Alcaraz get stress cramp against Djokovic in Roland Garros. So would that also be, a non-entity of a final? I'm not sure either way. Perhaps Jannik Sinner could be the one to upset the apple cart in the semi-final. Do you think he's got a chance? He came through Roman Svitolina in 4 sets to get into his first semi-final of a Grand Slam. So, well done, Jannik Sinner. You've broken that quarterfinal hurdle. Also, only the third Italian man to reach the last 4 at Wimbledon. Obviously, the most recent being Matteo Berrettini. Do you think the fact that Sinner's kind of made his first semi-final, do you think that's going to inspire him with confidence, or do you think he's going to be thinking about being 2 sets up against Djokovic last year and losing and thinking, what do I have more that I can give to rectify that?
He is going to need all the help he can get. He needs the Carota boys back.
Oh, yes.
He needs the Carota boys back in his royal box, I think. In his royal box? He needs the Carota boys. His royal carrot box. No, he needs them back in his player box or even just in the stadium, to be honest, cheering him on, because it's going to be a real uphill battle, particularly because there might be mental baggage from last year when he was 2 sets up and lost in 5, but also I think because Kim, I'm not gonna lie, looking at the players that Jannik Sinner has defeated to get to a semi-final, it's bit budget. It's borderline like, are we at Wimbledon or are we in a ATP Challenger? Like, I don't think he's faced anyone above, I want to say like 75 in the world to get to a Grand Slam semi-final, and as a result, that step up from a Roman Svitolina, for example, who amazing, great story, him getting to a Wimbledon quarterfinal, but going from that to a Novak Djokovic, it's a completely different. It is chalk and cheese, and when you're dropping sets to Roman Svitolina, that does not fill me with great confidence that you've got a genuine shot at a Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, and the last 3 sets of Sinner Djokovic from 2022 was 6-3, 6-2, 6-2, and I'm scared that is going to be the case come Friday. So
there might be like a tokenistic set maybe thrown
7-5,
yeah,
7-6.
Potentially. I think Sinner can live with Djokovic's game. I think it's more of a question of how long, and I just unfortunately just can't see it over
5 sets.
Over 5 sets. So I think it's going to be tough, but yeah, it's nice to see. I think Sinner get to a Grand Slam semi-final. I mean, he's so consistent. He's been to the quarterfinals, I think, of all the Grand Slams, and I think Andrei Rublev must be looking at his draw and thinking, just sort of cursing his luck, because I do think sometimes it's just the draw you get. And I was reading some interesting comments about the fact that I'm here saying Sinner's had an easy draw to the semi-finals, but I have no doubt some of our listeners will say there's no such thing as easy draws at Grand Slams, and you've got to face what's in front of you. So I certainly think that Sinner, now that he's got to the semis, he needs to make the most of this moment, but it's going to be an uphill battle from point 1.
Yeah, and you can't control your draw. You can only control what you do against who you're playing against. And, you could have had Jannik Sinner's draw. You could have had a draw like Elina Svitolina, where you've got all these Grand Slam champions lining up to play you. So it is just very much, as they say, luck of the draw. And yeah, odds are against him, but you you never know. Maybe the carrots can beat the apples. And the other side, we've got Alcaraz against Medvedev as the semi-final. Alcaraz came through against Holger Rune today. Straight sets it was, 7-6, 6-4, 6-4. Quite an entertaining first set. Alcaraz getting that on a tie break. And then I thought this match was going to be 4-5 sets maybe. I thought it was actually going to be, a bit closer in terms of like at least Holger Rune getting a set. But, Alcaraz got the job done, and, I think Rune played fairly well, but just wasn't quite at Alcaraz's level today, obviously. What did you make of the match today?
Yeah, I thought it was very tough and combative for those first two sets. There wasn't much, I think, either side. And I think it was going into this match, I was curious to see, because there's going to inevitably be a lot of parallels between these two players, these two young players. I think it's always great to see young players in these big arenas with these big moments, because you really want to see how they handle themselves on the court. And I think for Carlos Alcaraz, he just handled it slightly better. I think he's just that tiny bit better in all of the departments compared to like a Holger Rune, in terms of the aggression he shows, in terms of his weight of shot. I still think there's some work to do. I'm not convinced by Alcaraz's forehand. I still think that there is work to do there. I think there are too few many shots, regulation shots, that were going long. But Holger Rune at the end of the day just wasn't able to live with him. And although it was kind of, I think, tiny percentages in those first two sets, the more it went on, the more it felt like it was going to be a formality for Alcaraz.
Yeah, and I think Alcaraz probably, if he wants to go all the way here, I think he's quite glad he avoided getting into a 5-set, really long attritional battle, because it just hopefully keeps him that bit fresher. Albeit, he's under the age of 21. I mean, it was the first Wimbledon quarterfinal between two players under 21 in the whole of the Open era, for the men's side of things. So I think that alone just shows you what an exciting, prospect both of them are, and already so highly ranked, of course.
There's no doubt, I think this is going to be a rivalry, for the future. I know Wimbledon would have you believed it's Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, but certainly Carlos Alcaraz Holger Rune is going to be, I think, a captivating story for years to come. I don't think this will go down as I think they're going to have plenty more tussles in the future, and this is not going to be one that is going to be, I think, written home about and glorified. When we look back on all of them. But I think Alcaraz just showed where he's at and the experiences that he has had. And although I think both are relatively inexperienced on grass, again, I think credit to Alcaraz in terms of the way that he's come into the tournament, winning Queens. It's just given him that level of confidence, I think, that he can do this, and he can believe in himself and his movement on this court that could potentially set him up, going forward, because he is going to need everything working for him. And I'd say like that was 80% there against Holger Rune, but I think he needs to get closer to 95, 100.
I agree. And you never know, it could still be an Alcaraz Sinner final, and Wimbledon might have the last laugh with their poster predicting Alcaraz and Sinner. I mean, that would be quite sort of prophetic, wouldn't it, if it does end up being a final between them two, although it's, like we said, very unlikely when Djokovic will have something to say about that. Let's have a look at the final quarter. It was Medvedev against Chris Eubanks. Eubanks having this absolute dream run here at Wimbledon, but it wasn't.
Looked like he was still in a dream.
I know. Well, he went 2-2 up, and we all thought
it was a tiebreak away.
I know. It was crazy scenes, really. And then the fifth set really sailed away, 6-1 to Medvedev, who got the job done. But yeah, I mean, Medvedev took the first set, but was just completely then, overwhelmed by Chris Eubanks, just hitting massive, and Medvedev just sort of looked a bit shocked, like, what do I do? But he managed to get the job done, cling it back. That fourth set tie break obviously kind of put an end to things, really. Eubanks just couldn't play the same way in the fifth set. It looked quite upset, sort of sad as it went on.
I mean, Eubanks has had a phenomenal run. And although you'll be disappointed, no doubt, that he was so close to getting to a Grand Slam semi-final, he can hold his head high in terms of what he's done in this tournament. His ranking, where it was a few months ago and where it will be. This has been a career-making, I think, event for him. And to think, I think he's now set the record for the most winners in Wimbledon championships. It just shows, I think, the brand of tennis he brings to the court and how, I think, exciting he can be at times. But at the same time, Daniil Medvedev, he got it done in the end, and he showed great, I think, mental resolve, and he just lifted his tennis at the times he needed to. Because when he was 2-1 down, I was wondering, is Medvedev going out here? Are we going to have Eubanks in the semi-final? But he raised his game, and his returning against someone with a bomb of a serve like Chris Eubanks was impeccable. It was almost I don't want to compare it to Novak Djokovic, but it was almost. It reminded me of Djokovic's display against Hubert Hurkacz. So for that to happen and for him to cut down on the unforced errors, particularly in those last two sets, it was just I was impressed with how he raised his game when he needed to most.
And, that is the hallmark of a Grand Slam champion, which he is. He's also never lost on court one. So if only, the rest of the tournament was held
well,
on
I was saying,
I
was going to say earlier, if the men's final was Medvedev Djokovic on court one, then maybe that would give him more chance. But I think it's interesting, because I don't think he's played on centre court before, but it'll be interesting to see how he adapts, I think, from one court to the other, because he seems to be playing so well on court one at times. He almost doesn't want to let it go, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. And just a note on Eubanks, he'll be in the top, I think, 35 in the world after his run here, and also after winning his first grass court title in Mallorca. So, hopefully he can be seeded for the US Open if he keeps up this form and takes that onto the hard court swing. Looking at the semi lineup that we do have, this side of the draw, we've got Alcaraz against Medvedev in the semi. They are one match apiece in their head-to-head. And actually, Medvedev beat Alcaraz at Wimbledon 2 years ago. That was a comfortable straight sets victory. Obviously, Alcaraz, I think that was probably the first time he played at Wimbledon, so very different now.
I don't think we can read too much into that. Maybe. Yeah, compared to. I'm reading more into Sinner Djokovic, I think, from last year than that previous match.
Yeah. Well, let's make some predictions for the semi-finals. So let's do the men as we're on the subject. Here we go. Medvedev against Alcaraz, Joel. Who are we going for and how many sets?
Medvedev in 4.
Oh, okay. I've gone Alcaraz in 4. So
okay.
But you have just been selling Daniil Medvedev to me, so I'm maybe leaning more towards that. But we'll see. And what about Djokovic, Sinner? Djokovic
in 3, and the Carota boys to post on social media that they're very sad about it.
Oh, the poor carrots. I've got Djokovic in 3 as well, and I've put in brackets at an absolute stretch 4 sets.
Something unbelievable has to happen to me, like Djokovic hitting getting defaulted hitting a line judge or getting injured or something like that. It has to, I think, start with Novak Djokovic. I just can't see Jannik Sinner raising his game to a level that is going to beat him.
He'll have to, I don't know, have a magician coming out of his Gucci bag or something on court.
Yes.
And so for the women's side of things, Svitolina against Vondrousova. Who have you got and how many sets?
I'm going to say Svitolina in 3.
Oh, okay. I've gone for Svitolina in 2 sets. I think she's going to... I think Vondrousova's not going to have enough pizzazz around the court, shall we say. Jabeur,
Sabalenka in 2.
Oh, I've gone Jabeur in 3.
Oh,
We're very different on our predictions.
Well,
today.
I mean, we've got to address the elephant in the room, Kim. I mean, what do you think Wimbledon are going to be making of the fact that we could have Svitolina versus Sabalenka in a ladies' final? I mean, this is something we're probably going to be talking about maybe on the semi-finals catch-up pod, but that is probably one of the worst outcomes I'm going to assume that they would have thought about going into this tournament, Ukraine versus Belarus.
It's a bit awkward, and I think what also makes it awkward is the fact there won't be a handshake at the end, and if the crowd don't really fully understand the ramifications, then I just don't want a sort of Roland Garros style booing situation. You would hope that and expect that in a Wimbledon ladies singles final, the Wimbledon crowd would be,
I mean, the photos afterwards. What's going to happen there? I think there's a lot of there would be a lot of a need for clarification. I think, yeah. I mean, I get that we've had Ukraine versus Belarus already with Azarenka, but certainly with Sabalenka and her actions in terms of the French Open and her approach to press conferences, certainly this is much more dicey. I think and nervous. I think for the organisers. So as a result, I'm like, I really want that to happen, but it could. Sure. I think that could get ugly, couldn't it, if that happens? I
mean, last year they had Rybakina win, who is Russian born and raised, so arguably that was also a bit awkward as the question came out last year, but we will see. It may not happen, so we'll get to that point if it does. But yeah, Wimbledon might be thinking, come on, Ons Jabeur, let's avoid this awkwardness. Just a note as well, a couple of British results. We did have Maya Lumsden and Nytha Baines getting to the quarters of the women's doubles, which this is the best result of their career. They're the first British pair to reach the women's doubles quarterfinals since 1983.
Yeah. 50 years or something, wasn't it?
40 years.
Oh, 40 years, yeah.
We're not quite at 50
Yeah,
yet.
Sorry, my maths is completely off there.
But yeah, great result for them. They got kind of whipped today by Mertens and Storm Hunter.
Tough pairing. Tough doubles pairing there.
But I think they'll be pleased with their tournament overall. I mean, they've done something that no one's done for 40 years, so full credit to them. And I just, that's a really good result. And Neil Skupski is in the men's doubles semi-finals with Wes Koolhof. So they've got Ebden and Papana. Your favourite, Kevin Kravitz, is also in the semi with the Poets. So he's still going. And
no, Kim, he's dead to me now that he doesn't play tennis with me. So yeah, not bothered anymore.
We also had Johnny O'Mara and Olivia Nichols in the mixed semis, but they lost to Pavic and Kitchenok. So some British success and I guess, losses, but hopefully maybe Neil Skupski can go all the way in the men's. And also Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid in the wheelchair event as well. Alfie is he's going to be hoping to get a career Grand Slam here if he was able to win the title. So we shall see, and we'll cap all the results off over the course of the next few days.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's all hotting up at the championships. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action still to come from Wimbledon. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at Tennis Weekly Pod. You can email us on tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back on Friday evening at Tennis Weekly HQ for our semi-finals Wimbledon catch-up. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.